It's my great pleasure to have been early on the executive director and the curator of BIMA from the beginning. And then about halfway through our 10th anniversary, which was last year, Sheila Hughes came on as the executive director. And it was really a game changer, allowing me to focus much more on the art side of the house. We were a brand new regional art museum with a focus on the art and craft of the Puget Sound region. And of course, Cynthia Sears' artist book collection has grown and grown, and we've realized that we also are international because that collection is local, national, and international. But early on, there was a lot of interest in people donating art, artists, collectors, estates, gallery owners, willing to facilitate a donation of art. But we collected very slowly and deliberately. And that was because we were brand new. We were pretty Bainbridge focused. If you think about the early founding board, the kind of range, the knowledge we had of various regions in the Puget Sound region, and we thought, we need to slow down a little bit and catch up to everybody that we are here to work with and serve and learn about. So the first 5 years, the collection didn't grow very much. Cynthia Sears had a wonderful collection of her own, but the very first question she asked me when I was hired, well, actually, the very first question I was ever asked is, what would be your first goal for BIMA? And I said, from what I've seen of Bainbridge Island, I hope I can get people to stay out till at least 8 o'clock at night. Probably the second question had to do with Cynthia. She asked, how would you expand this collection? Because it started with the Founders Collection, but Cynthia collected what she liked, what she wanted to live with, what she wanted to decorate yonder, the retreat facility next to her home with. And she didn't pretend, she first of all, when she started collecting, she didn't think that she would be starting an art museum. And then when she realized that she did want to start one, she realized that her collection didn't in any way cover the breadth and depth of artists. So I introduced her to Ann Gould Hauberg, and in Seattle. She had actually met Ann once before. And we started talking about other forms of art that Cynthia hadn't been drawn to as much, say some art that's more abstract or conceptual, and started working with a couple of collectors, including Ann, who donated 9 wonderful pieces to the collection. Actually, it was going to be 10, but her daughter Faye really loved the George Tsutakawa sculpture that we were able to borrow from Faye and Nat. But we were looking at about 10 different pieces of art from the point of view of where else does the art world go, and where has it been in prior decades as well. Our focus tends to be on contemporary art. There isn't an absolute date line that we draw in the sand, but I would say we probably are collecting from the 1950s forward. And this is a piece by Marcel de Lacy that's in the collection, The Secret. And in some ways, when we founded the museum and we launched it, and I didn't see this piece till later, but and it's been included not only in a show of hers, but also in the collection exhibitions. But I felt like if there was one piece of art that portrayed what we were about at the moment, it was this, because we really needed to lift up and see what was out there. What are all the secrets that we didn't know about? So the show upstairs is not the entire collection, of course, but it's selections from it, and it's called So Far. And So Far has 2 meanings. One is really, this reflects examples of what we've collected so far. But if you put a kind of a question mark on it, it's like, well, where do we go from here? What's really missing? Some of the advertising talked about a panel discussion today. There is no panel. You're the panel, and we're going to have time for questions and answers, and I hope that you'll share your observations about BIMA's collection, your questions, and also help to fill in some blanks as we go forward. We have this amazing building on this gateway to the Olympic and the Kitsap and Olympic Peninsulas. We're really, really lucky. And when I took this job, I realized that we had a big responsibility. We didn't want to duplicate exactly what's going on in the region, and we did decide to focus from the art that I curate on the art and craft of the Puget Sound region. And I think most of you are familiar with our goals. I won't read these. You can see them. But we also talked about artists who are not quite as well known being a platform for them. And then as the years go by, we realized that artists who are quite well known become lesser known. I don't know how many people in Seattle realize they walk by how many of George Tsutakawa's amazing sculptures every day. Ginny Ruffner, who's extremely well known in the glass art world, which is its own niche, is not as well known to the general public, even though she has public works as well. So we've kind of expanded the concept of what not being quite as well known means. And some people are very well known regionally, but nationally, maybe not as much. Diversity in all ways has always been a key value to BIMA. From the very, very beginning, one of the first capital campaign donations that we secured was from Barbara and Gary Ames, and it was to establish a cultural diversity fund so that we could always support artists who we thought were compelling, who represented their cultural heritage, racial background in their work, and needed support to complete a series to show or something like that. And at the time we were the first contemporary art museum in the West Sound, but the Museum of Art and History in Port Townsend, the Jefferson County History Museum, has really committed itself also to contemporary art. And it's just great to have, I don't know what you call it at this point, sister organization or, just a family member that we can work more closely and plan things ahead with as time goes by. And then I'm going to address some of these, what we call anchors, as I go through the slides, and you can see what they are. I've mentioned a few of them, but there are certain things that the founding board endorsed as of very high value for things that we address. As chief curator, I wanted to pick a piece like what does it feel like being the curator? And this is a painting by Alden Mason, and it's called My Cousin in the Garden. And this is a recent gift from Herb and Lucy Pruzan. We released a video, you can find it on YouTube or in one of your emails from BIMA, where Herb and Lucy were interviewed about collecting for several decades. And we have 8 pieces upstairs in the current show that are promise gifts to BIMA. But I kind of love this, it's sort of the Garden of Eden and, sort of what can happen in your own backyard. And being a curator, a lot of people, they'll say to me, wow, you must have a really sexy job, or you have the best job. I do have the best job. But you spend most of your time saying no to people, unfortunately, and not because I feel I have a real bias personally. I don't bring if I brought my personal aesthetic bias, the entire collection would be black and white and minimal, and it might have some gray streaks in it and a flash of white, but that's it. So you can't do that when you're working for a public organization. But there's just, there's a lot of, it's very exciting. it's a real mixed up world out there in terms of how much is available and everything. And there are times when I feel like I spend a lot of time disappointing people, whether I don't have enough slots to give compelling artists a show, or we can't take everything into the collection. So where do we go? Several of you I know have seen this before. I'll be brief. But everything we do from a curatorial point of view, whether it's exhibitions planning or the collection, is like playing three-dimensional chess. If I think about whether it's how to combine shows in the building at the same time, what could work with what, and even within an exhibition, Linda Okazaki's here, and I remember the conversations we had, the pieces about her mother's murder and other series and things, and what kind of a story are you telling, and where's the flow, and how do you sort of couch certain things and illuminate other things, and I feel like that's true in a lot of ways in the art world, and but I spend a lot of time with my staff and our art committee, kind of thinking about what's important, what have we covered, what is missing, what should we be doing next, and we'll get into that. This slide is from the show upstairs. On the left, you see two of Rachel Pfefferman's pieces, and we had her retrospective, and this series really about the Holocaust and her grandmother, who was a seamstress at a very young age. It's a series that we have several of. The Rachel Pfefferman Gallery was named such because we did have a major donor who did not want their name on the gallery, but said, if you're about an artist that's not as well known, why don't you pick one and name the gallery? And it just so happened that this family knew the Pfeffermans and knew Rachel, and that's how that name came about. One of the themes that I flashed earlier was the environment, and on the right is Karen Hackenberg's piece, and this is called Out on a Limb, and it's one of the earlier pieces in the collection, and I'm showing this to you so you'll go up and see it. We will have a reception afterwards, and the food and drink will be upstairs this time. Usually we have it downstairs, but because it's about the collection, I want it to be upstairs. Go and look at this. It's basically a scorched earth that where the resources have been exhausted, and whether that you see that as energy, wilderness, environment, food supply, and you have these tiny little figures like from a train set, and they're crawling around trying to figure out where they could go next. And it's what I love about this piece, it really reflects from if I do have a curatorial bias, is that because of where we are on this intersection, this gateway, we get so many different kinds of visitors. We also have had in prior years before COVID over 100 school field trips a year. We have international tourists. We have a lot of art savvy people, a lot of people who've also never been in an art museum. And from a curatorial point of view, and I know some people are just day trippers, they didn't even know the museum was here, and they come upon us and come in. So it's not my goal to hit people over the head with a message or to kind of have them feel slapped in the face or rebuffed somehow. It's more that I really want to draw them in and have them see something that they maybe didn't quite see at first, and then they learn more about the artist's intent and the message here. This is very much a piece about climate change and just kind of the decimation of the earth, and whether or not there are other possibilities. But it's exactly the kind of piece that I really enjoy curating. Similar from an environmental point of view, this is probably the most, this piece by Robert McCauley, and it's called Meanwhile in Another Part of the Forest, maybe the most successful piece for our school field trips, and it's upstairs today. the kids run over to it. They're asked to sit down, and and they start pointing and laughing, and they're really gleeful. Oh, I see the bunny, I see the squirrel, there's a turtle. And slowly, and of course the messaging changes by age, but what they realize is that all of these animals would not normally be together on the planet Earth. They're from very different zones. They're from, land and sea. And what's happening, the gray sky in the background it's not just a cloudy Seattle day. The world's on fire, and it's quite an apocalyptic piece that is really, really beautiful and kind of fun as you approach it. And I again, this is similar to Karen's piece, Out on a Limb. This is the kind of piece I really enjoy that draws you in. So I'm going to just talk briefly about the show upstairs. And again, it's not the whole collection, but what you'll see is a whole variety of work. On the left side, right of the sign, is a piece by Richard Gilkey. And it's an iconic Skagit Valley scene. Being one of the Northwest School artists, so-called Northwest School, I have a show that this summer that is kind of little provocative, but some people have declared the Northwest School dead. Some people say it never existed. Many artists I know identify with it, maybe whether it existed truly or not. I feel like there were a lot of people who must have said, wow, finally there's a phrase, and I identify with it. And this is a piece that was donated by the Bank of America collection. And then as you walk in, this sort of from the curved wall side, you'll start to see a whole variety of things. And how excited I am that the scale of the collection in terms of the size of the pieces can change now, and I have been changing for a few years. David Eisenhower's here. We have his amazing dandelion piece, and this particular view of it, you don't really see the top of it, but you will when we break. Again, major environmental artist with lots of messages. And part of the summer show, Northwest School Now, is looking at how art has changed. I mean, people do, you can never say this is the art world, this is where it was, and this is where it is now exactly. But I do see some trends. A few years ago, I curated a show called Revering Nature. It was both on Vashon Island and here. And more and more artists within the last 15 years especially are dealing not so much the beauty of nature, although there is a lot of beautiful work, revering nature, but more and more it's concern for it. And we'll see that. I mentioned the scale. In the back is the Paul Horiuchi painting donated by the Pruzans. We were able to collect because we now have a building in Paulsbo. It's a storage building. It's not a storage unit. It's a full-blown building, has a bathroom, which makes working up there really nice. And we have about 3,000 square feet directly or right now available to us. Downstairs archives is 2,500. So we've been able to more than double art storage. And we're able to keep more fragile, more valuable, larger pieces here, like David's sculpture and the Paul Horiuchi painting. And I can move anything smaller, a smaller 2D piece or something, the ceramic or glass piece that can be safely boxed and be transported in a vehicle. But as you go around the room upstairs, notice how much larger some of the work is getting in the collection. And that's important for a lot of reasons. One, a lot of artists work big, but also the gallery spaces were designed to accommodate larger scale pieces. So that's thanks to Cynthia Sears, the best 10th anniversary gift BIMA could have received, from my point of view, the chief curator's point of view, was this building. It's amazing. You know, when I was first hired, my background is in facilities planning. I was the director of facilities planning in my prior career at Mount Sinai Medical Center when we built the 1 million square foot hospital that IMPay designed. And We tore down 27 small, little obsolete buildings on the Upper East Side and greatly expanded. Medicine was changing so much and technology was changing. The building part of this was the easiest piece for me. So I looked at the original blueprint and it had art archives on it in the basement. And I know some of you have been down there. And I said to the founding board, well, in about 5 or 10 years, you will need another space. And they said, oh, will we have that much art? I said, no, it's not about the art. It's the pedestals, the movable walls, all the crates for shows that have come in and they're waiting to be recreated, and all the bubble wrap you need, and all the, it's everything else that you need to run an art museum. And that's going to fill up a lot of this space. And it did. And what's great is that over time, we have this art installation crew, and it includes also people who don't always install art, but they make things for us to install with. Chuck Faddis, who's a magician, designer, metalworker, carpenter. Charles Sharp. People have made all of these pedestals, shelving, cases, everything over the years. And I may only need that for a jewelry show every 4 years, but I need that, and we have to store it somewhere because it's way too expensive to buy again, or and even renting. When you rent things, you tend to get those convention center cases that look. Anyway, this is being recorded, so okay. So a few fun things we're going to run through. Alfredo Araguin, who we have the largest collection of his work of any art museum. Susan Lytle, his widow, and who's also a wonderful artist, told me recently. In his will, he donated, he bequeathed a few dozen artworks to several museums, and these were 2 that we received. The one on the right was in his retrospective that we did in 2018, and I remember a conversation with him because he and I walked around. It was after reception and things were thinning down, and we were kind of walking around, and he said, which series of art do you not have in the collection? And I pointed to the one that's on the right. Tapete, this is a piece that has more to do with Mesoamerica and harkens with the, basically the pyramids in Mexico, the Mayan, and then this is, in a much forested area. And then, of course, Teotihuacan, the Aztec pyramids. And I just I love this piece for a lot of reasons. One is he invites you in with this point perspective, and then he uses this verticality for the rest of the work, except he also goes back into perspective as he introduces another layer and layer. And Linda, this reminds me, we've talked about your work, how you have this surreal, I call it surreal. Linda wasn't always ready to call herself a surrealist in the same way, but my sense of the work is that you've created this visual plane that somehow transports the viewer somewhere else. And I think it's so interesting how he invites you in. You can almost like you're walking into this carpet, this tile-like area that makes sense. And then things change. This one maybe less so. The other piece is all pattern. And I think about the old samplers that typically women would embroider, the alphabet or patterns or flowers or things. And I think about if he, this is what Alfredo did. This is kind of his sampler. It's all of these patterns and symbols. Some are a little more, this is a little blurry photo, enlarged like this, but some are a little bit recognizable. You almost see the beak of a bird or a mask that might have been, a face on one of the temple or pyramid facades or something. But it's just all pattern. There's no real narrative to that. And this is other work he's done. He was an environmentalist. He's passed away. But what he told me was he wants people to remember why nature's so important. He wants to paint beautiful things. He started in his later years to focus also on the Salish Sea, and the pieces you see in the lobby reflect that. Salish Sea is one of them. Dion Pickering Zwerner is an abstract painter. I feel she'll be in the Northwest School Now show as well. She's a landscape painter, and there's a lot of realism in her work, or not realism really, but representationalism from the point of view of you can kind of see things, rock formations and hillsides and waterfalls and that. But there's this ethereal quality that's really beautiful. And the piece on the right down below is called Hide Body. It's another piece by it's by Lauren Grossman. It's another piece from the Pruzan collection. And I love this piece because, we've only had it on display for the spring. We just got it. And I've had more people say things like ick or oof or whatever about this piece. And then other people, already it's their favorite piece. And there is a nude male ceramic form inside. And Lucy assured me it's true because part of the hide split, the dried hide split one point, and she had to ask the artist to repair it, and it was repairable. And Lucy peeked in, so that's all the proof I have. It's just Lucy's word for it. But the idea of hide body, again, it's like this kind of double meaning. Is someone trying to hide if they pulled something over themselves? How could you sew yourself in like that? Or is there something about someone that someone else thinks needs to be suppressed or, not known, like a secret? It's just very interesting. It's not quite to scale. The piece is a little smaller than an adult person, but and maybe then you could say, well, maybe it's some sort of child somehow hiding or something. But I love this piece. And Gail Bard was the very first book that we, for her, we opened in summer of 2013. And I wanted to do at least one retrospective, and we had Barbara Helen Berger. I had asked Margie McDonald, sitting here, to do something wild in the window. I didn't need to ask her to do something wild because that was, assumed. But I had put, if you go up the staircase and you look up to the right, we had a sign made to name the Beacon Gallery, Cynthia Lovelace Sears Beacon Gallery. And Cynthia didn't like it. And she didn't want me to buy the sign or to put it up. And I told her, I said, Cynthia, there's just no way we're opening this building without your name somewhere, because she didn't want the attention on her. So I told her, I promised her that Margie would hide, create enough wire work in an undersea, outer space, whatever people would interpret it as world, that her name would be hidden and no one would see it till, January or something. And she was okay with that. So, we wanted to also publish books on artists. We thought it was important, and more we're also doing videos. And Gail Bard had has an amazing career. And she showed me recently a piece she completed for people, a commission piece. And so that was the first of now, I think, over 10 or 12 books that BIMA's published. And this piece is hanging in the show upstairs. Fiber arts is something, when we talk about what's missing, already people are asking me, because I say, keep an eye on what you think might be missing. We've shown a lot of fiber art. There's a ton of it, and it's such a broad category, whether it's, and it could be, fiber, it could be, anything. It could be wire or electrical wires and traditional cloth and things that, you actually, quilting and crochet and whatever it could be. We've shown a lot, but we don't have a lot in the collection. And we even did a Fiber 2020 show. And yesterday I went to Foster White Gallery. They hosted the Alden Mason first annual, or first one ever, Alden Mason Awards for artists. And Ko Kirk Yamahira, the artist that deconstructs canvas painting, he paints first on a canvas, flat, not stretched, on canvas, but just flat. And then he slowly, I'm going to get this wrong, I know, and it's being recorded, but there's the warp and the weft. Margie, help me out, which is the warp. Warp goes up and down, and weft goes horizontal. And he'll take one of those. Now, a canvas is a woven, machine woven, industrial woven piece, and what he does is he goes in and somehow gets a hold of what's woven up and down, and he deconstructs it. And that makes the piece completely, kind of sway down in that because it's not held up rigid-wise. Anyway, he won the top prize. Really, he was in the Fiber 2020 show, and I was really pleased. But I was there yesterday, and I was just thinking, he's described as a painter, and yet I saw him really as a sculptor. It's interesting. He starts with paint, but then I wouldn't say he ignores it, but he doesn't focus on it much from there. Carletta Carrington Wilson, we have a series of 12 of these. They're about this size, and we will have a retrospective of Carletta's in 2026. It's confirmed now with her. She's still building different series and wants that much time to complete. But this is called Field Notes, and it's about communication among slaves on plantations. And Carletta's work is really about nature and beauty, but also the reality of especially Black American history in the United States. And these are so beautiful and so subtle, you really wouldn't know what her message is until you found out more about it. But this is combining all kinds of fiber and then also some found objects that she'll use a lot of times. And this is just another one. Edwin T. Pratt was the executive director of the Seattle Urban League, and he was murdered outside his home in the late 60s. He and his wife they ended up in Shoreline, a couple of things. One is he was fighting for economic rights for people of color, in particular job opportunities in different industries, construction, et cetera. And then Seattle had been redlined, but anyway, he opened the door one night at his house out in Shoreline and was shot in the face and killed. Paul Rucker, who lived in Seattle, I've just read that he's starting the first ever museum on the history of racism in America. I think it's in Virginia. So I don't know if he's moving but Paul wanted to do a series of stamps for people who were victims, especially in the civil rights era, and they basically who were not quite well enough known to have a U.S. postage stamp made about them. So this is called Forever Series, and it's a series of oversized postage stamp books, just like you would get at the post office, and then individual. You'll see the Edwin T. Pratt series upstairs. Larry Avicana. Larry and Donna have since moved back to Alaska, but lived in Suquamish for a long, long time. And these are some early pieces from Cynthia's collection that I really, really enjoy hanging and have to do with legends and transformation stories. The Suquamish tribe has helped us with 3 major indigenous exhibitions, and in the process also gave us a grant when we did the Canoe Journey show in 2018 to collect some indigenous art, not necessarily Suquamish artists, and we were able to purchase things with a grant from the Suquamish tribe, purchase some wonderful art from local galleries that was able to help us expand the Indigenous collection. You see a couple of paddles, of course, related to the canoe journeys. And Troy Roberts is actually up on northern Vancouver Island. We do extend to the Salish Sea beyond Puget Sound. Salish Sea is basically Puget Sound, Strait of Juan de Fuca, and the Strait of Georgia that goes up and around most of Vancouver Island. And this is another Canadian artist, First Nations artists. And this piece has both to do with Indigenous identity, but also gender identity. And Denise Harris's, this piece is on display in the case upstairs. You'll see it. We will have a show of hers. She's from Bainbridge Island in the community gallery this summer, and it will have many pieces, metal pieces, prints, and also it's a nod to all of her years as scene designer and decorator, among other people for BPA. And we're going to really create a wonderful environment and have some fun with that. It's one of the pieces in our metal collection, a metal sculpture collection. Of course, it's very small. And then you get a little more mid-sized Bill Baron Mickle. They're both using the techniques that you would need for jewelry art, but they're creating more metal vignettes. This is another, both of these are in the collection. And jewelry art is something that hasn't been collected by regional museums much. Sam's always had older decorative arts than that. Tacoma Art Museum started several years ago with a commitment to collect contemporary jewelry artists. This is Mickey Lippy. It's a double-strand necklace and earrings that was in her retrospective last spring. Ramona Solberg, who was considered kind of the mother of Northwest jewelry art, she knew how to fabricate and do sophisticated metal techniques, but she chose to do more design with things she found, especially on travels. And this piece is on display upstairs. And then Nadine Correa's piece is also upstairs. It's part of a grouping, including Roger Shimomura's 3 paintings upstairs. And this was a piece that she made based on an actual bird that was carved in the incarceration camps that she did not want to use as a piece of jewelry, but she wanted to keep it as is. You'll see all of that upstairs. This is a piece, it's not on display. Dina Barzell, who was very active in earlier decades. I mentioned we go back to about the 50s, but there's a lot of work of hers that was, more, I believe, like, 1970s, 60s, and we'll be hanging that at some point. Frank Renly, if you go upstairs and go up towards the classroom, up those few stairs, or if you want, we can let you in around the other way if stairs are an issue. Frank Renly is just fun for fun's sake, and we have a relief fillables show that we were approached. Actually, Michael Greer, the head of Arts Fund that used to be corporate counsel for the arts in Seattle, contacted us and wondered if we were interested in hosting these kids that were in a robotics club on the east side, the Redmond area, and if we would help them to show their project because they were in this competition, but they needed some public interface with what they're trying to do. And what they're trying to do was make visual art more accessible to people with visual, whole range, whole spectrum of visual impairment. And please go and see and push a button and see the video. It's really pretty great. These kids came and met with us, with their parents, and these 6th graders spewed out words that had so many syllables, like I couldn't have done it without losing my breath. And they were so smart, and I just thought, we have a wonderful future of people who can really take on a problem and solve it. This piece is also upstairs, Jenny Anderson's. When I think about it, it's like a feast bowl. She's got all these little faces in the bowl that the bird is is interacting with. And I kind of think about that as a curator. You know, I have this very lucky chance to just go around and see and sample and find out more and meet more artists. Talked about Alfredo Aragin's pattern, which is kind of his visual vocabulary in a way. This piece was in Ginny Ruffner's retrospective, and it has to do with her own visual vocabulary, all the symbolism, whether it's the ace of spades or the feather, you know, the various things, the snake, they appear over and over in her art. She made this piece. If you look in the mirror, it's a self-portrait. She thought of, she knew lamp working wasn't taken seriously in the glass art world. It wasn't really an art form that a lot of Americans did. Most people knew it as the thing you do with the little torch. You know, you're at the carnival in the booth and someone comes up and, would you make me a dog or a wishing well or whatever, and or a swan. And she told her class at Pilchuck Glass School, she gave them a list of things they couldn't make that she thought were forbidden because they just seemed to be what everyone wants made at a carnival, including a swan. She would say, if you make it, I'll break it. And she actually did break something. So, but the swan is her self-portrait because she and others have helped to make this art form more accessible and recognizable and more important. And it's just interesting how she took that thing that she used to want to smash, and she constructed her self-portrait as it. This is a piece by Susan Stimsmühlen Amend, and she's not from here. She's in California, but she's been very, and her art, she's an example of an artist who's been involved in the region with Pilchuck Glass School. And there are artists from time to time that don't necessarily live here, but they've shown here, they've been pivotal in one way or another. This is a solid glass spray bottle. And Paul Marioni, who's since moved to Mexico, is, you know, just an amazing person with a really wonderful history. And before he, this is a piece that Cynthia had actually purchased years ago, but before he moved, he donated something like 15 pieces to our permanent collection. This is from the retrospective, not retrospective, from it was a collaborative show of two solo artists, Nancy Callan and Catherine Gray, who typically don't work together, but they had this idea to make work for a show called The Clown in Me Loves You. And we had that show and did a book, and this is called Floral Glory. It's a takeoff of the American flag. You could look at it from various perspectives. And this is also on view, kiln cast glass, a whole nother type. I talked about we're able to collect larger works, and I'm looking forward to that because I just think when people can move around a space and look at things very, you know, pulled in to look at things very, very small, like Nadine Correa's pin about the incarceration camps, or Alan Newberg's monumental wooden sculpture. It just really, I think, changes the visual experience. We're working on a long-term project, the Heki Sepa retrospective, and we're hoping to do a show that will travel through the United States and also at least in Europe. And this is a collection that we were able to have because when Heki Sepa retired, he moved to Bainbridge Island, where Lori Lyle, also a wonderful metalsmith artist, lives. And Heki died in 2000. They built a house up off of Baker Hill Road, and he passed away in 2010. But there's this amazing legacy story that you'll learn much more about. And currently we have on the ramp his works. This is one of the gold pieces. And then Joan Tenenbaum in the fall will have a show also. She's a really meticulous metalsmith jewelry artist. Preston Wadley had a nice exhibition at Bellevue Arts Museum within the last year, and this is not a book. It's you know uses book form, but this is called Nine Kings, and it basically is a photograph of 9 very proud black soldiers, on a jeep, and then also how people can feel used as pawns. And I love his work because it draws you in from a bit of a distance. First of all, you have to approach the piece to kind of look down into it, but also it's not something that slaps you in the face, but it has a really, really serious narrative. I wanted to show you this Kathy Ross piece. It's not in her show, it's in the collection. It's called No Worries. You'll see 2 globes on the wall. They're one piece. It's called No Worries and then Worries. And every once in a while, you meet an artist and everything changes, even for you and hopefully for them. Years ago, Chris Maynard called me from Olympia, and he said he wanted to come introduce himself and show me some art. And I said, well, what do you do? And he said, I cut and glue feathers. And it was the single longest pause on the phone of my entire career, art, hospital planning, whatever. I didn't know what to say. I had roomed briefly with my sister in college, and she was in the macrame phase. When she wasn't cooking pot brownies, she was doing things. And anyway, I met him, and it was really fun. He had started pinning instead of gluing, he was pinning out 3-dimensionally, and he could get a shadow with these feathers. And then I just happened to ask him if he had ever, could we get, birds want to fly, the whole thing, and could we get your work out of the box, out of the frame? And I asked him to do 3 installations, and this is one of them you see on the right, for his not retrospective, his exhibition. And he's done commissions since. And again, an artist. He was a biologist. His father was an eye surgeon and would practice on little tools. He remembers sitting at the kitchen table. Can you imagine these days, the mail comes and it's like an eyeball or something, a pig's eye? But anyway, like what do you press at the post office for that? I don't know. But as a kid, and so he inherited these little scalpels and all these tools. And then his mother was an artist, and she actually did Sumi style painting, a lot of it black and white. So anyway, this is it's been a real great journey working with him too. And this is what you're going to see upstairs, so I hope you do. So I think I'll go back. No. So anyway, I guess I have to do this on the keyboard, huh, Cole, just to go. So slideshow from the beginning. Okay. So what's still in the box that we don't have? I want to open it up for questions. Cole has a microphone. If you'd like, he can hand it to you. And please, comments, questions, how we doing, what's missing. You can't, if you're an artist and you're not in the collection, that one thing you can't do is say, my art's not in the collection. But you could send me an email. Okay.
I hope to be in the collection one day.
Well, one of our goals is to definitely, I mean, we have a lot of kind of backtracking to do to catch up with artists who've shown here and get more people in the collection. And now we finally have space, we can do it, so.
Oh, yeah, no, something else you want?
I'm not sure.
Well, Linda actually has offered us the piece that I chose. In her retrospective, we did the book, and Carrie Tremaine did a beautiful essay to start the book off with, and then I did one more about the show itself, and used the piece, the blue pond, that again is kind of, vertically hanging there. And Pond with Old Spirits.
Yes,
So, yeah.
that's correct. Well,
And so that is in the process of being voted on for the collection.
oh, thank
Yeah.
you so much.
We actually have a formal committee. The committee members, which are board members, community members, some artists, they do have an up or down vote, an absolute vote for what goes in the collection.
Oh, I see. Well, what I wanted to comment on while I was still on my mind is when you were talking about the little birds that were flying, that relationship between an artist and someone as yourself, mentioning, can we get it out of the box? That kind of interchange of it's just a very important part of the whole thing that sometimes I don't think that we're that keenly aware of or even have that opportunity to be exposed to. And I really appreciate that part of your contribution.
Thank you. It's a really fun part. And it doesn't come from like criticism, like, gosh, this is stuck, or I wish you'd do something else. But it's more like, everything, and I'm not an artist, but what I observe is that artists are always thinking and evolving, and it's not that you have to change for change's sakes. In fact, gallery owners, I used to work for Bill Traver, and I've helped in other ways with galleries. You have someone who's really hot selling a certain series, and then you plan another show with them, and then they end up, you do the studio visit 6 months before the show, and they switch to an experimental medium to narrate what their mother did to them when they were 3 or 10 or something. And it's like, oh my God, no. So, I mean, it's there. The art world dynamics are very interesting in themselves. But I guess we here at BIMA, we have time and we have space. And the more time we plan out, because now shows are planned out 3 to 4 years, but that gives us time to get funding for things, sometimes to help an artist pursue a series financially that they wouldn't be able to do on their own, or publish that book, or build in aspects to it. So it's not just like, what do you have to show? Let's show it. It's kind of like, what you're doing is a real fit for one reason or another, or it pushes us beyond in a way. And what if you had 3 more years, and that kind of thing. So it's fun. Who else? Pardon? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. It's Kathleen, I saw your name on the reservation list, and I thought, oh no. Yeah, it is missing, and why? I guess I don't know. Yeah, that's the tough question.
I feel like
Bigfoot's iconic. Yeah.
I feel like chainsaw carvings are pretty like endemic to the Pacific Northwest too. I feel like it's very core to what it feels like to live here in Washington, like chainsaw carvings.
We might need to start with a show, because like, how do you pick one out of all the other ones? It's clearly something we don't know much about. That's true, and but it could be kind of fun. I do want to do a show one day called "My Mother Was an Artist," because I think about every in the beginning of BIMA, about every 10th email was, could I show you some work? My mother was an artist, and let's face it, there have been a lot of mothers out there who are pretty great artists, and then a lot of people who never got their due, or were in local shows or things, but maybe never had a chance to be a professional artist, with everything they had to do. But that's something, the very first day when we opened to the public, a woman came in the lobby and, barely said hello, but walked in, walked around, walked upstairs. I lost track of her. Comes back down. I'm in the lobby. And in about 5-10 minutes max, she was gone. And she turned to me and she said, "This is not at all what I expected." And I said, "Well, what did you expect?" And she said, "Well, you're right here on Bainbridge Island. I expected boats and mountains." And she really was expecting, landscape paintings and all of that. And there's some amazing ones, but that wasn't the whole story. So what else is missing from the collection? A what? Crickets. Heidi, that's an interesting point because to successfully do a lot of the video art, you need a black box space, a space you can really darken. And a very early decision that the founding board and Matthew Coates, the architect, made together was how to solve the value, the desire to be visually accessible to the public and inviting from the outside. And the way that they solved that was to create these windows. And we've mitigated sun with certain things like the louvers or the shades that we have that can come down. But we kind of gave up this ability to have a totally darkened space. I have had shows like Barbara Earl Thomas, we can illuminate and do certain things, but that's something that without constructing, there's not one space in the galleries. We do run videos. I have a pop-up show, for example, this summer. It's an LGBTQ plus pop-up show with visual art, poetry, video, and we could do a loop. We've asked people if they have short videos to submit. We can do a loop of videos in here and turn this into an accessible gallery space. But that's a definite limitation, like the Henry Gallery, for example, or even the Fry in Seattle, can do that really successfully. And that was a trade-off that was really conscious. We discussed it. So, yeah. There was a blitz of artists who wanted to do an NFT, like at first, people were creating things, and I don't hear about that anymore. What I hear more about is worry about artificial intelligence and copyright and all of that. And it's interesting. Like every technology has, over time, has expanded our creativity. Think about what is it? 100 and almost 50 years ago, the camera, photography, is comes into our life, and what a kind of a threat, an opportunity that was, and also kind of what a threat in the art world, and how many museums. I mean, it was seen more as a documentation format, not an art form, and photography was one of those art media that really had a hard time breaking in to the museum world. Like ceramics and glass and jewelry and lots of other things. So, Russ.
How would you feel about altering this? I'm thinking the Guggenheim.
Yeah.
Entire Guggenheim.
Gosh, we're planning further out, so more is possible, but we'd have to look at the cost of it. And, what we've done with technology, say with lighting, we did Ginny Ruffner's Aurora Borealis on the outside. And there's certain sorts of light projections we can do, There's the Hilltop Glass program in Tacoma that Dale Chihuly had started with someone. They are doing well, we do the treasure trek with them. We commission them to blow the glass floats that are then distributed to the various parks in Kitsap County. And Hilltop has a couple of neon artists and wanting to do that. I think we could, light projections we could do, well, if it had to be absolutely dark, we'd have to construct a space within a space. So I would say it's possible because we're planning far enough out. That kind of thing would require some sort of, funding for that sort of infrastructure. We'd have to figure out it's all solvable, but, then there's the fire exiting, like you create a space within a space. What's the maximum number of people who can be in it? I'm talking myself out of it really fast, Russ. No, I'm just, no, but that is possible, and it's also with, because we're planning shows further out, we're able to see what that is. I could see doing a neon show for sure, something like Ginny Ruffner's, more light. Well, even Margie, I think your idea, doesn't it, for the future? We're nailing down a show not too far away, but I think you had some lighting. Ricky Ducournay and Margie have this. Sort of diorama kind of, yeah. But that might be more illumination within something, right? Yeah. Okay. So what are some of your favorite pieces in the collection? Or what would you like to see more of? Yeah. Alfredo Ergin, Chris Maynard, the feather artist. We don't, but I think, aren't they in Montana? Yeah. Yeah, it's cool work.
I must say, is the first picture that you showed, the garden one in the black, the very abstract one. When I first saw that, I just go, ooh. And then I came back a week later. I'm a docent, and I looked at it, and I don't know if the lighting changed or if it was just my eyes. I had cataract surgery, and it looked totally different. And then, if I come once a week and I look at it, it's just amazing the things that you can see. When I first saw that, I go, what in the heck? But I really have come to really enjoy that piece of art. And I'm surprised because I'm more like a Monet kind of a chick, But I've learned to appreciate that piece of art very much.
Well, all the layers of painting in Alden Mason's work, and he did several different series, Burpee series. I mean, his work isn't like Alfredo's, where, I think every time I've seen an Alfredo Ergin painting, I recognize it as such. But his work changed a lot over time. Anyone else? Yeah. Yes. And I just, Wendy's on our art committee. And, it's interesting. And she's been on the board at BIMA. She does mono types. And she shows, she'll have a show very soon at Harris Harvey Gallery in Seattle on First Avenue. She was with Sam Davidson Galleries for a long time. And then Sam announced that he'd be retiring at some point. But yeah, her work is really wonderful. And since this is recorded, we can certainly let her know too. I think sometimes when when you're on a committee, there's also a hesitancy to talk about your own work. The people aren't there to do that, and yet we have collected committee members while they're on it. I certainly don't want to punish people for it. Bill Barron-Mickle, who's here, has wonderful work that's been donated, and we're so grateful. So someone would have to recuse themselves from a vote and not push their own work, but yeah. Big murals. Oh, Kurt Solmsen. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and we have several in the collection as well. The Labor Day, the painting of people on a porch that's often in the lobby around summertime, that's one of Kurt's. And yeah, he does wonderful work, and a lot of it. The Yellow Boat. We had when we had his show. I think more people will recognize if I say the Yellow Boat. Just the small rowboat that's on their property. There's a lot of paintings that include that one way or another. So are we ready for a little bit of food and drink to hold body and soul together? So thank you everyone for coming and for your comments too.